So I'm Stacy Peterson, the curatorial director of the Dubuque Museum of Art, and it's my pleasure to introduce Hieyler Pimpton today here for her solo exhibition, I Have Told You 50 Times. Hieyler told me 50 times, at least, what the title of the exhibition is and what the title of the works are, and I think I messed it up at least 3 or 4 times. I don't know. But it's a fantastic exhibition, and it's full and fun and free and kind of like Hieyler, who is someone who is very observant, notices things, but is the most friendly, warm, and open person, one of the most friendly, warm, and open people that I know. So a little bit about her. She's originally from Southern California, received a Master of Fine Arts in Painting from Savannah College of Art and Design. She's traveled the country and lived in many places, and she currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia. But from 2021 to 2023, she resided in Dubuque and opened her own gallery, The Art Factory, down in the Millwork District, which some of you might have been to, hopefully. We are so happy to feature her work today and her solo exhibition. And Hieyler, welcome. Everyone, give her a round of applause and help me welcome her.
Well, I'd like to say thank you so much to all of you that have come here today to see the exhibit. And I want to thank Stacy and Gary also for the opportunity to show my work here. It's just a marvelous thing when an artist can show their work in an institution like this. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself first. Or maybe not, I'm not gonna go all the way back, okay? I'm gonna have a starting point of maybe when I started to collage, okay? So I started to collage in the 90s. That's a long time ago for someone like some of the people visiting here, they're very young, but I started to work on collages in the 90s. And I was at the time living in Southern California at that time, and I had children. So gradually, we had moved to Virginia, just outside of the capital, DC. And I went to a Smithsonian, the National Gallery of Art, and I saw the work of Romare Bearden. I was like blown away by what you could do with used materials that are already out there. You know, I thought, my goodness, I've never considered it. So that was in 2002, and it just opened my eyes up to what could be done with paper, and that I could color paper and make something, you know, with it. So I had interacted with his work again. I moved to Texas. I was in Fort Worth, and I was working in a museum there. And they had an exhibit like in 2013, and I saw his work again, some new work. And it was, that particular work was on Homer's epic poem, the Odyssey. And it was he called it the Black Odyssey. It was just about black images, black people, you know, and he used literature to make these images. And I had looked this up last night. I saw that that particular show had about 50 works in it. And I was like, subconsciously, I guess I just kind of was like, okay, that's, you know, I honestly did not connect the dots. But I had been influenced by collage artists like Joseph Cornell, Hannah Hawk. She was influential too in what I do. But it was just seeing what I could do with paper. And my desire is to take what's already there. It's just there, and make something else with it. And I like color. I've been trained as a painter, and I make really large abstract paintings. And so I guess how it translates to the work you see in front of you is that it's full of color. So it's a different medium, but I still choose to use color in my work, and I like to. And I also like gestural marks and making, I guess the hand is important, just the visual, so someone looking at it can say, that's not photocopied, it's someone made that. And I'm drawn to that, and I want people to see that. I don't know if it resonates with you, but I largely make for myself. I think most artists do. So that's where it began. It began with Romare Bearden. Let's see. I talked about my formal education. I got a master's in painting, and I don't like to be pigeonholed. You know, I want to be able to express myself how I want to. Painting is part of who I am, and collage is part of who I am, and so is lithography. I've done printmaking as well. I enjoy that, and I think that it's important to be true to myself. I know that I'm not typical when it comes to, if someone was to come to me and say, hey, you gotta just paint, that would just make me very sad. I don't like to be pigeonholed, so this is not, I didn't show hardly any collages in my gallery, but when Stacy said, we'd like to, extend a show opportunity to you, I was like, I'm gonna do something that I don't always do, And so the number 50, it's nothing special about it. I just knew the space that it was gonna be in, and I wanted to saturate it with imagery. And Stacy is very open. She was like, okay, whatever you wanna do. And I was like, could it be 75? And she was like, that's too much. It's a little, because it's so graphic, and I could have done probably 100 of these things. It's just, and they all happened this year. I did all of them this year. And I set the mark of 50 because I thought I want it to be big, and sometimes as artists you have to push yourself to make new things. And so I set the barometer pretty high. I was like, I'm gonna do a lot because I want to put something new out there. So the order, they're not in order. They're numbered. I wanted them to have a identity, but they're not, the number that appears on the work is just the number, that it's not how in the order it was created. They're not in the order. It wasn't in that order. So number 46 was not the 46th work I made. It's just how it's identified in the work, in this body of work. So what else should I say? Okay, so I generally make very large works, but I moved to Atlanta with my parents, and they don't have gallery space for me. So I had to consider scale. And I had to think about what I was gonna, I had a designated space and it just was small. So what can I do in this small space, and where am I gonna store these things, right? So that was a consideration in the size. And I tried to say just a little in the amount of space that there is, okay? So I used imagery, but I selected just a few things. Sometimes it's just two things in the image. So you have to, which was fun to me. Sometimes it's, it could be saturated or it could be minimal, So it was fun to just limit myself to just a few things in one image, okay? So some of the images, like the one behind me, is like a full, it's full bleed kind of. That's how I would term it, because there's no open space, and sometimes it's quite open. And it's just based on feeling, how I felt the image looked or how I wanted it to look. A lot of the imagery comes from children's books, which I'm really super nostalgic. I love old things. So children's books, old Life magazines, National Geographic, really old ones, picture books. So I do have quite a sizable amount of paper wherever I am. So that's what I use to select the imagery from. And the backgrounds are painted papers. And the media is like paint, acrylic paint, or ballpoint pen, or crayon, oil pastel, just different media was used to make these images. I don't know, I welcome any questions you might have. Yeah.
So the genesis of each one, do you come up with an image that you see in a magazine, or do you see something that you want to create and then the rest of it fills in from there? Or do you collect the whole batch and figure out what they have in common and put them together?
Okay, good question. So how I approach this body of work is I made all the backgrounds at one time. So 50 backgrounds, nothing, just the color paper on paper. So I made all of those all at once. And then I started to go through the magazines and just pull out things that were interesting to me. And then I would go and figure out how are these things communicating with each other. So if something's gazing over there, what is he looking at? So then I'd find something he could be looking at and then put that together. So I don't have any preconceived idea of what it's gonna be. It just comes about organically for me.
I have a question about one thing that strikes me is the colors you're using, the really bright colors, and it's not just pink, it's bright pink, or it's not yellow, or it's green, it's like really bright green. And I guess you kind of were addressing, I got something of an answer there with the background. You did this first, and maybe if you could talk a bit about the choices you made in the backgrounds you created and the color palette that you're using.
So I love color, okay? And one of the houses that I owned, every room in the house was a different color. Now, many people can't stand that, okay? But I love color. So I think I guess I'm just trying to tell people, look at color. Like, these colors are in the world, they're in the world, and I want it to be striking. I want it to attract your eye, because I see it, So I want you to see it too. And a lot of them are like, pink and blue, or like they're really strong yellow and pink, or yellow and green, or, purple and orange. I just kind of, yes. I'm not thinking about, I think I'm just thinking about what looks good to me, and I hope it looks good to you.
Hieyler, do you want to talk about the titles, the title of the exhibition and the title of the works?
So every work in this series is, the title is, I've told you 50 times, there are 50 works, and the title of each work is, If Your Eyes Are Closed, You Cannot See. And so, and it'll be number 40, or, you know, it's repeated for 50 times, okay? So I think I think for myself, I'm always looking at things, and so I think I want to encourage people to look at things. And don't close your eyes, open them and look and see what you see. So that's behind it. Yes.
Two questions. One, I'm a UVA graduate, so whenever I hear Virginia, I want to know, like, where in Virginia you live. Purely coincidentally, I'm wearing my Virginia Architectural History shirt today. And then the second question, you were talking about imagery coming from children's books. So are you cutting up children's books as well as magazines, or is it just looking through children's books that inspires you?
I lived in Falls Church.
Okay.
Okay, so very, very close to the city. Yes, I'm cutting up children's books. Please don't hold that against me. I'm finding them at the Goodwill. Like, I mean, it's like secondhand, you know. It's children's books, things that I saw when I was a kid, and, you know, I do have encyclopedias from when I was a kid. Those I don't cut up, but if I find extras of them, I will, you know. But yes, I'm cutting up children's books and other media like National Geographics, or, you know, just different things that catch my eye. So yes. Yes.
So in the spirit of everything that you've shared with us, I would encourage everyone to check out her online presences as well, including her Etsy page. But my question is, can you tell us about two things here? One is the mobile, and the other is there's one image that breaks the plane. What happened there?
That breaks the plane.
Or it breaks the frame.
Yeah, this number 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The mobiles, it's paper clay. So I felt like paper and paper. It's paper on the ceiling, paper on the walls. I've made these for actual people before too, like little children. I've made them for their parents for gifts. But I wanted to present it in a space like this. It's paper, it's paint, it's abstract, which speaks to everything that I have done in painting. You get the sense that it's a bird, right? So it doesn't have to be spelled out. Look at these birds, but you get the sense it's a bird because it has the form of a bird. And I like the sense of something hanging overhead, you know. I like it. It's paper, so that's how it's tied together. And the number 7 over there, I think I couldn't make her fit in the frame, so I put her outside the frame.
Other questions?
Okay, now, you just kind of have to help me.
Okay.
All right, you said you did all of the marked paper. So I'm imagining you sitting there with the print book source and all these sheets of paper that you've marked that have color on them, and you help me. What do you find first?
Okay, so I'll do the paper. I'll just make a whole bunch, even ones that I didn't even use, okay? I'm at a table making backgrounds for these images. And then I'm tearing and putting things together. You know, some have several, some have two, some have one. So this has several. So this is 3 or 4 colored paper images. I'm just putting them together, not thinking of imagery at all. Okay, it's kind of like a image in itself, just the colored paper on paper. I could have shown that, 50 of those, but I wanted to put imagery on top of it. So it's steps. So I'll have a whole bunch of papers that I've colored and tear them up and put them together and set them aside, and then, do all of them at one time, and then come back and see what imagery is going to look good with the background, I am considering the background when I'm looking at imagery because I don't want it to be too distracting, with some of the images. I want you to be able to see the image clearly. And sometimes it's dark, like, there's some that are like this one. It's quite dark, black, but you have to look closely because there's an image here that could be missed. Yes.
So am I understanding that you have like that one with the deer, you have a green piece as one whole piece of paper, and then a pink piece, another piece, and you rip them up and put them together?
Yes.
I thought you painted them on the one piece.
No,
Oh, okay.
they're all set. That's 3 different pieces of painted paper in that image. You see some of it is in this image.
So one more question. I'm just fascinated. At one point you said you're kind of pulling upon nostalgia, and some of these images from the 70s and I'm guessing maybe the 60s precede you, and the 50s, but just things that you may have read when you're a child or your parents had. And I guess I'm just fascinated if you can say more about this particular you could pull from things from the 90s and the 2000s or whatnot, but here you're kind of choosing that particular era, and I'm just curious if it's more than just nostalgia. And when I think of Romare Bearden too, I'm thinking of just some of the settings he had in certain places, and I'm wondering if these are kind of childhood settings in a way for you.
Yeah. I would say I don't know where the fascination or the drive to look at old things comes from, because I'm like in collecting things, I go to old things. That's the thing that I collect. I'm not collecting. I don't really buy new things. I buy old things. I think too, it's bigger than. I think it's bigger than art too, because it's what I gravitate. I think I'm nostalgic for old times, the old days. That is part of. I don't know why though. I don't know why, because I don't know why I'm just like, oh, I like the fashion of the 50s. I like I like gloves. Like, women don't wear gloves anymore. I love gloves. I love hats. I like, I just like old things, old Hollywood, and so I think that, I don't know, that's just me.
You're putting old Hollywood in this new a new context, and
Yes.
it's just so different than
Yes.
what its original context here. All of a sudden,
Yes,
it's
I'm
jarring,
making
it's
it
surreal.
current. I'm making it modern. I'm calling you to go, hey, look, remember that? Remember those times? Remember that? But yes, and it's modern and new and contemporary, So I guess I don't want people to overlook it or not remember it. I want you to remember what happened before.
This might be a weird question, but do people ever look at a piece and say, like, there's something really jumps out them that it means something by what you've put in, and then they tell you what it is, and you're like, really?
Yeah. That's not what I was saying, but that you're welcome to that. Yes, absolutely. People, I think that because it's human and, you know, you've seen it or you've seen it before I've seen it, it's just, it means something to you that it doesn't mean to me. It's okay, you know, but yeah, people do that all the time, you know. Good, you're looking, you know. I think that that's important.
Tyler, do you keep these 50 together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's one work. Yeah, I consider it
Someone says, I've got to have that one.
$5,000. No. Or 50 for $5,000.
So you're not adding to the
No, I
collection?
won't add to it. It'll just be something. It'll be something new. If I make more, it'll just be a new body of work. Yeah. I think because I made them all at the same time. You know, I feel like it's like a picture of where I was, you know, this year. I made them in 2024. So from maybe December, January 24 to May. Well, it was before May. I finished before May. I was like March. I think I finished. So January to March, this is who I was. January to March.
So following up on that statement, while you're preparing this show, you're also preparing for a follow-up, which you are curating here at the Dubuque Museum of Art. And I'm wondering if there's anything you'd like us to think about from one to the next.
I am super, and when I say super, it's all capital letters, like excited for the show that I'm putting on in February. It's not like anything I do, and I think that's why I was drawn to her. Her name is Garrett Grimm. She's a professor at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, so she's in Madison. She makes a beautiful, detail-oriented sculptures, life-size. Okay, like we're gonna have one of her life-size sculptures in the space. So her gallery she'll be over there. I can't wait I've never seen her in person, but seen her work in person, but it's gonna be fantastic, and I hope you will come and see it. I can't wait. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be great.
Well, we are really excited about it as well. So this is not the last you'll see of Hieyler. She'll be back in February to install the last show that will be in that gallery at the museum. So we're very honored for that. Any last questions? RRS?
When you were talking about the backgrounds, you mentioned paint. Are some of them also marker? Like when you were talking about that black one that kind of looks like lines, is that marker or is it also just streaky paint?
It's oil stick.
Okay, oil
Yeah.
stick.
Great. So when you go home and look through all of your photos and magazines, now you can be inspired by Hieyler and what she's been doing, hopefully.
Yes, you can collage too.
Or be inspired by it.
Yes, be inspired.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for joining us today.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
And this show's up through February 9th, so come back.
It's my
And-
birthday, actually.
Oh, that's your
Yeah,
birthday.
it's my birthday.
That's wonderful.